What's up, everyone? Just a quick note before we get into it. I am going to be playing the Edge of Fate campaign on Legendary difficulty as footage in the background. So if you do not want spoilers, I ask that you would not complain and turn your phone off or block your screen if you don't want spoilers for the campaign. Thank you and have a good video. Spoiler warning ahead. So I understand it's been 4 weeks since the Edge of Fate launch, but I wanted some time to experience everything and get a good idea of stuff before I jumped into a review feat first. Did Bungie fall off the edge of Fate, or did they make the landing? That is what I intend on talking about in this video. Welcome back to another video. Today I will be discussing my thoughts on the Edge of Fate. Let me know yours down in the comments. So, did Bungie fall off the edge? I think it's more accurate to say they are like hanging from the cliff, because some of the things from EOF, Edge of Fate, are great. The new tier system for armor and weapons is fun. I think the campaign is overall positive with some negatives. I think the portal itself is good, but I'll talk about that later. So, let's start with the story. I want to start with the story and my thoughts. I'm not the biggest lore person in the world, not Biff, obviously, but I enjoy some lore from time to time. So I kind of knew what was happening during the campaign, but I would imagine your average person wouldn't know exactly what is going on with certain characters. I think the story really delivered, and it had some low moments, like collecting all, I think, like 6 strangelets. So the characters we got, Lodi, he's cool. I kind of was disappointed. He had a Glock at the beginning of the campaign, but never used it again. But I think he was written well. I look forward to seeing him interact with other characters in this roster. I really hope we get an interaction between Xur and Lodi, because I think they could have an interesting dynamic. I also hope Bungie has Lodi interact with the other Vanguard members. We didn't get to see Saint or Osiris or Zavala or Crow at all during the campaign. One complaint that I've had, that I've heard, that I agree with, is that the campaign is a little long. I felt like I was playing the campaign for a solid 50 hours. I know it wasn't actually 50 hours, but it definitely felt that long. Another complaint that I bring is that if you're not super lore invested, there are some story beats you can miss. For example, the Archon can just kind of transfer his conscience, and we learned that in the first or second mission. But for example, if you're playing with friends like I did in my first playthrough, you might just completely miss that, aside from the fact that you're fighting an enemy with the same name 5 times in a row. That happens in the first or second mission too. So there are a lot of lore beats that if you're not really paying attention to, you can kind of just miss. That is just kind of a Destiny complaint in general, right? In general, with all story, unless you're just super deep paying attention, you're probably going to miss a good 50 to 70% of the lore. So yeah, one last time. This is a very lore-heavy campaign. Lore was great in the campaign. But example of what my point earlier, if you don't understand who the 9 are, 3 dying at the end is completely, you don't feel the weight of that at all. But even I, who only understand the lore just a little bit, understood the weight of 3 being dead at the end of the campaign. So yeah, the story, it was good. Albeit it was a little gaudy, but yeah, if you are in it for the story, 100% I would recommend you play it for the story. That is the Edge of Fate campaign. So the gameplay. With Edge of Fate, Bungie introduced many new gameplay mechanics. They introduced Matter Spark and Matter Morph. They introduced Rosetta. They introduced the Relocator. They also introduced 2 new enemy types, or kind of. They introduced the Corsairs, which are Fallen that can fly, and they introduced Vex Imp Swarms, which I'll talk about a little later. So they also introduced Kepler, a brand new planet. So yeah, let's just jump into it. The Matter Spark, people have said it was overused. I totally agree. It was a little overused. Especially during day one launch, it was kind of jarring to use. Thankfully, it's been fixed a little bit. It's still not super intuitive to use. But I think it's decent enough to use, and it's fun. So they did overuse Matterspark. However, I would prefer that Matterspark is overused rather than underused. So that way, right during parts of the campaign when Matterspark is like actually relevant for us to use, we know how to use it and are doing well with it. For example, during the final boss fighting the Archon, you use Matterspark to like disable some servitors or something. I think if we have not used Matterspark a ton up to that point, we would have had more people complaining that it was hard to disable those servers with Matterspark. So that is one upside to a downside, which is sort of interesting to think about. But what about the other things? Mattermorph, Rosetta, Relocator, all that. So Mattermorph, I think, was actually really cool. I really enjoyed it. Albeit it was a little more tedious to use than Matterspark. So, like, again, sort of an upside to them overusing Matterspark. We didn't have as much Mattermorph, which is okay, because I think if we had the roles reversed, we were using Mattermorph a lot, and Mattermorph was being overused, and Matterspark was being underused, I think people would be a lot more angry with Bungie and the mechanics, because I think Mattermorph, personally, I find it to be more annoying to use. Not that it's completely annoying, right? There are some fun times with Mattermorph, but I just think it's a little underused, which is fine, but it's kind of more annoying, and it would be definitely more annoying if it was overused like Matterspark. So what about Rosetta? Rosetta is literally just a magic key that unlocks doors. That's it. It really doesn't play any other relevance in the story, which is fine. So that's a thing. I think it's better than having to just defend a point to unlock doors like we've done in previous missions. I think that's far better than just having to defend a point, right? Just you have the magic key and you open the door. So yeah, the last introduced mechanic, Relocator. I think this is way cooler than Matterspark and Mattermorph. I prefer it over Matterspark. I think it's a cooler way of navigating the world than Matterspark. Because it involves more puzzle solving. Not that Matterspark doesn't involve puzzle solving, but it requires more brain power, if you want to say that, to use the Relocator than it does to use Matterspark. Right, Matterspark, you turn into a ball and you just follow the path. Relocator, you get the gun. Okay, well, now where are you going to shoot? If you can't see that with a line of sight, how are you going to get there, without indirectly shooting it, right? So how are you going to navigate these puzzles? And I think there's a lot more puzzle solving with the Relocator, which I really appreciate. So, we talked about the mechanics. What about the new enemy types? Because, there's the Vex Imp Swarm and the Corsairs. So, the new enemies, they are really cool. The Imp Swarm, I appreciate, because you're supposed to take out all so the Imp Swarm, it's like one central imp, if you want to call it, and then a bunch of littler imps, smaller imps. The main, like, the goal of the Vex Imp Swarm is that you're supposed to take out all the smaller imps, so that way you can deal more damage to the main imp in the middle. Because while all the smaller imps are alive, the Vex Imp in the middle will take less damage. So I appreciate that. It adds more challenge to the game. Most enemies before were just, you shoot them in their crit spot, and there wasn't really much you could do aside from that. You shoot them in the crit spot and you kill them. This makes you sort of go out of your way if you want to deal optimal damage and, kill the other little imps. So I really appreciate that. I think the Vex Imp Swarm is a good addition to the game. I think it's going to improve any encounter with the Vex by a lot. At least improve the difficulty. So I appreciate that. So the Corsairs, they're just flying fallen. I'll be completely honest. It's like the frickin' Star Wars meme. Oh, they fly now. Ha ha ha. That's literally what's going on here. There is no difference, as far as I have been able to tell, between the Vex Imp, the regular Fallen, and the Corsairs, aside from the fact that the Corsairs fly. So, that was the new mechanics. Overall, I think the new mechanics are a good addition. I would just hope we see them in the future, right? Because like Matter Spark, Matter Morph, Rosetta, they're all kind of tied to Kepler. So I hope we get to see them outside of Kepler. I don't think we will, personally, but let's hope we do. Yeah, the new enemies have been popping up in other places, and I think that's really good. So, yeah. Let's talk about the bonus content, because I think this is an interesting topic. So, alongside the campaign and the gimmicks introduced specifically for the campaign in Kepler, we got bonus content, if you want to call it that, such as the new leveling system, the tier system for armor and weapons, the portal, and the new modifier customization. I really like the portal, though the portal and the new leveling system did kind of kill the most important aspect of the game, that being the social one. People are farming solo ops as the main way of leveling right now, so no one is playing together, and it just kind of sucks. But besides that, the portal is really fun, and getting to choose specific modifiers is a good change. Though they haven't added raid or dungeons to the portal yet, so we can't fully utilize the new modifier customization. But I think going forward, the new modifier customization is going to be far superior to the old, here's your modifiers for the week, have fun. So the tier system, on the other hand, isn't necessarily the greatest. Bungie has made it close to impossible to get anything above a tier 3 at sub 400 power. I think the only place that I've gotten tier 3s so far are from Solstice, which has been dropping higher than normal. I understand that tier 4s and tier 5s aren't necessary, right? But the loot chase is only as good as the loot. And I don't want to have to spend 50 hours trying to get myself to the point where these weapons and armor are available to drop. I mean, comparatively, the old endgame armor was just doing things that we were already familiar with, just at a higher difficulty. Think Artificer armor. Think Adepts and Shinies. You would get an Adept from GMs, which is just a hard strike. Master Raids, which is just a harder version of a raid. Shinies, that's kind of case specific, but you would typically get Shinies from the higher difficulty things. So yeah, the way to get endgame gear has drastically changed to be more difficult. So that I don't appreciate. However, the tier system did make getting better armor, so you can get improved armor, easier than the old system. Instead of grinding a million years to get a good rolled Artificer piece, you select what archetype you want on your ghost, and you just grind your chosen activity. Assuming you were at the right power level, you were just going to get higher tier weapons and armor, and that's just the best way of getting like the high end game armor, which is, it's a lot easier to do that, and it's a lot easier to tell what you want with this new armor system, which I appreciate. So that was the bonus content. overall, I think the bonus content is middle of the road. We got some good changes, like the new armor system. We got some bad changes, like the new leveling system being impossible to get to 400. So, overall, it was middle of the road. So, final thoughts, closing statements, whatever you want to call it. I thought this expansion was good. It had some flaws. It also had some good things. But in general, I think it's good. So, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please let me know your thoughts down below. If you think, oh, I think your opinion on this is correct. I think your opinion on the tier system is incorrect. I think the tier system is great, and you're just stupid. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really curious to know what you guys are thinking. The community seems to be really divided over this DLC. So, any thoughts? I think bring something to the table. Any thoughts that you bring to the table, as long as it is not an ad hominem, will be helpful. So, thank you. And don't forget to have a good rest of your day. I'll see you next video.